Chris Finlayson.
Mr Chairman, Part 2 has three subparts. The first part outlines the basic interests in the common marine and coastal area, and this includes, importantly, the clause which provides for the special status of the common marine area as an area which cannot be sold. I don't intend to go through the way in which we reached the concept of a common marine and coastal area because the Honourable Peter Dunn, I say to the Senior Opposition Whip, gave an excellent second reading speech when he explained how the concept of public domain had almost taken hold, and then Ms Clark needed to run to the New Zealand First Party for guidance, and they were adamant that it had to be Crown absolute ownership. So that's the first part. Certainly the bill as introduced contains in this part provisions repealing the 2004 Act and restoring customary interests which were extinguished by it, and also contains provisions as to existing interests, for example, resource consents. Subpart 2 outlines public rights and powers in the common marine and coastal area. It preserves the public right of access, fishing and navigation, and I'll say something about access in a minute. And subpart 3 provides a new regime for reclamations, which is as a result of a great deal of consultation with organisations like the port companies. Now, there are a couple of changes which are contained in the government's SOP. As mentioned earlier, it's proposed that clauses 14 and 15, which deal with repeal of the 2004 Act and the restoration of customary interests, be moved into Part 1. Clauses 16 and 16A change the status of roads. So roads will no longer become part of the common marine and coastal area and will continue to be owned by their current owners. If an unformed road continues to be unformed for 15 years, it will become part of the common marine and coastal area. The SOP also reframes Clause 30, and I believe that will better meet the policy intent that these functions held by the Minister of Conservation are residual only, and it also moves these particular provisions to Part 4. And the SOP will also remove Clause 31, which relates to notices regarding dangerous structures. The clause is actually no longer needed as the relevant agencies already have jurisdiction under existing legislation. But I do want to say something about Clause 27 because it's been the subject of lots of excited comment, particularly it was the first stage of opposition of organisations like the Coastal Coalition, and certainly questions have been asked in the House about it. Questions that could almost be regarded as offensive, that most Maori out there want to sort of block access to the foreshore and seabed, a proposition I find profoundly insulting. And it's suggested that an SOP will make it clear beyond peradventure that no one can charge. And indeed, Ms Culvert's the explanatory note says that her for the avoidance of doubt provision is based on a similar prohibition on charging contained in the existing Foreshore and Seabed Act. It seems that the opponents of this bill are like insatiable cormorants. You give them some guidance, you give them some help, but it never satisfies them. They just want more and more and more. And then this SOP reaches, as it were, the denouement because it is truly fantastical. But anyway, what I want to do is say something about the existing regime in the 2004 Act, because Section 7 of that Act provides for certain rights of access, and I particularly refer honourable members to Section 7, Subclause 2. Every natural person has access rights in, on or over or across the public foreshore and seabed, and those access rights can be limited for various reasons. For example, port companies, naval bases, places like that. In fact, in Clause 7, there is no prohibition on charging. It's a statement of rights of access. Then one moves to Section 40, which is said to be the non-charging clause, but it only relates to guardians of a foreshore and seabed reserve or an applicant group or a board not being entitled to charge or collect fees or other forms of payment. And so the point I'm endeavouring to make is that the 2004 Act did not contain, or does not contain, a general prohibition on charging, and to suggest otherwise is simply to misread the legislation. There have been a number of submissions made, some in good faith, some in bad faith, about the scope of Clause 27. As I have said all along, one does not need, actually, Mr Chairman, to add the phrase without charge, because a reading of the bill, and in particular I refer to clauses 64 and 119, mean that the cumulative effect of what we are dealing with here, a bundle of rights referred to in clause 64 when an applicant group succeeds in obtaining customary title, are just those rights and no more. But because there were some concerns expressed by people, no doubt, as I say, some in good faith, we have added into clause 27 the phrase without charge to make it clear beyond any doubt whatsoever. But undeterred, Ms Calvert has put forward a proposed amendment to avoid doubt. She wants to add in a subclause 5, and I say to her, it doesn't even get to base 1 because there is no doubt whatsoever that there never was any doubt and that we are getting to extreme stages where the member is proposing an amendment which can only be regarded as stating the obvious. And I was trying to think of who she reminded me of the other day, and then I came across it many years ago. There was a program, a very good program called Faulty Towers, and one day Sybil was in hospital for an ingrown toenail, and Basil suggested that she enter Mastermind and her topic could be the bleeding obvious. And really, it's that kind of amendment that we have here. It's a statement of the bleeding obvious, which is totally unnecessary when one looks at what the SOP put forward by the government provides, and a fair reading of the legislation provides the combination of clauses 64 and 119. So I have to say to Ms Calvert that her proposed amendment's not, as it were, complicated by any vestige of merit. It is unmeritorious, it is mischievous, and quite frankly, it's unpleasant.
I call Materia Ture.
Thank you, Mr Chair. How typical of this minister to get so personal in this debate.